Hello, I don't suppose I need to tell you all that there's a wave of strikes going on right now in December, just before Christmas, when most people are at their most, you might say, emotionally vulnerable, when they have things to do, family to take care of, when they want to go to parties, when they want to just relax, like Christmas season was supposed to be at last the time when we can celebrate, when we can get around, when we can visit people. Well, we can't do anything about the weather, but the fact that there's no public transport off and on is certainly a problem, and maybe heating and maybe medical care. Look, this is in The Guardian. They've given a calendar of what we're getting this month. UK strike days calendar, the public services stoppage planned for December. And if you notice, it's all the public services. And this has made me suspicious. As a matter of fact, I was chatting with a friend just this morning, and I said to her, do you think there's something behind this? I know this sounds very tinfoil. Well, what I said was, perhaps this is a bit tinfoily, but do you think there's something behind all these strikes? And she said, no, you're not being tinfoily. There must be something behind it. And she didn't exactly say for sure, but she happens to be well connected in the political arena. So the fact that she didn't dismiss what I suggested out of hand suggests to me that she knows something I don't. However, I have no proof. I can just give a personal opinion. The wave of strikes sweeping the country reaches a peak this week. Ah, right, just before I carry on, tell you who I am. Granniopteryx, on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. Because YouTube is a little lax about informing people of uploads, I am also on Twitter, Gab and Parler, where I am at Granniopteryx, and I let you know when I've uploaded a new video on one of those. So if you don't want to miss anything, you should subscribe to one of them, or at least look for me regularly on Twitter at Granniopteryx. Please help my channel by liking this video, by sharing it, and if you are subscribed, well, by subscribing, and if you are subscribed on YouTube again, just check that's still going, because that's not a given. All right. Also, speaking of a given, you can also give to help me financially. Buy me a coffee or one of the links below. Right, now let's get back to this. The wave of strikes sweeping the country reaches a peak this week, threatening to bring Britain to a standstill as workers across the transport network, the NHS, Royal Mail and Civil Service take industrial action. Industrial action means strike, by the way. Let's stop being, well, this is The Guardian, so they're going to try and put it as nicely as they can, aren't they? In ongoing rows over pay and condition. Now, the nurses get an average of £40,000 a year, as far as I've been able to ascertain. That means some of them are going to get a lot less and some are going to get a lot more, depending on their qualifications, time of service and what particular job they're doing. So the nurses are not incredibly well paid, but I say not terribly badly paid. The other thing especially is the train drivers, who get an average of £60,000 a year. Right, that means some get less, some get more, but it certainly doesn't go around too much. And the guy who's calling the shots here, a fellow called Lynch, although I keep wanting to call him Mr. Kite. If you haven't seen a British film of the 50s called I'm All Right, Jack, then perhaps you should look it up on the internet. Mr. Kite gets about £150,000 a year for being where he is at the top of a union, which is, oh, sorry, neighbour next door working on his garden. I think he's cutting trees down, actually. Okay, so, yeah. I don't know whether you can hear the buzzing on this, but if you do, that's what's going on. Right, Mr. Kite has called a strike. Fred Kite, that was his name. Okay, with wide-ranging protests in the public and private sectors, Rishi Sunak last week vowed to bring in new tough laws to limit strike action. Look, it's very odd that there are strikes in the postal service, in the transport services, in the health service, and in the civil service, all at the same time. And this cannot be a coincidence. It cannot be. There has to be some interference. Now, one particular sort of interference that I thought of straight away was that, after all, Vladimir Putin is an ex-KGB man. Most of his pals are ex-KGB. The chief, oh crikey, what's the name? The top man in the Russian Orthodox Church is one of his pals from KGB times. It's absolutely a combination that you can imagine would be the sort of combination that would think of this way of undermining a country when bombs and armies aren't working. Now, it's known that in the old days of the Soviet Union, there were actually Soviet interferences in the British political system and in the union system. So we know about this. And I don't see why things should have changed just because there's a slightly different government in Russia. It's certainly no freer now than it used to be. And as I said, it's just stuffed with ex-KGB men. So here we have these are all the strikes coming up in December at Christmas time, when people really do want a bit of a break. Monday the 12th of December, Unison NHS. Tuesday 13th, RMT, that's the transport union. Members of the public and commercial services, that'll affect numerous government agencies and departments. The country is being crippled. And they know this. And these are supposed to be British people who are working for British people. No, the strikes that the transport union, for instance, are taking are not going to give the transport union any more salary. It's a completely pointless exercise, but it's a kick at the whole of our society, actually. 14th of December, Communication Workers Union, that's the Post. So Christmas cards, yeah? They're just striking at everything that people need for Christmas. Oh, and yes, of course, the transport especially is very difficult for traders. People can't get into town, they're not buying stuff. So what's happening? They're buying stuff online instead. So Amazon is benefiting from this, and the local small shops, many of them, hotels and, Christmas dinners, that sort of thing, seasonal hospitality, they're all going to suffer. This is going to cause a lot of trouble, a lot more bankruptcies, and Lynch knows that. Yeah, he's got to know that. He's just taking it out on the small British business people. Okay, Thursday 15th, up to 100,000 nurses are expected to take part in the first of a series of strikes across 53 NHS organisations. RMT again, the security staff at Eurostar, okay, they're going on strike. PCS members, that's on the 16th, 12 days of strike action over the holiday period. Yeah, that's the PCS members. This is the civil service working for National Highways. Let's see, they're being regional. First Yorkshire and Humber in the northeast, and then working their way around the country. Ground handlers employed by private contractor Menzies at Heathrow Airport are going on strike. This is all on the 16th, and strikes are expected by RMT, again, transport. TSSA members with Avanti West Coast, that's another transport one, and Abello bus workers in the south and west of London. Well, you can see this is a concerted attack. This is somewhat more. It's just got to be somewhat more than coincidental. Saturday 17th of December, more RMT. Sunday 18th, RMT at Eurostar. Members of Unite now. One of my families is going to visit relatives in Germany over Christmas. I'm not sure they'll be able to get out there now. That's the 18th. Members of Unite, Unite, who work at the Highlands and Islands airports in Scotland are striking. Highlands and Islands, they are particularly vulnerable to a drop in communications. That's how they get there. Food supplies, Christmas presents, letters, just everything. There might be ferries, but in this weather, yeah, planes are probably the better thing. That's really just cruel. Look, the 11 airports affected are Barra, Benbecula, Campbelltown, Dundee, Inverness, Islay, Kirkwall, Stornoway, Sunborough, Tiree and Wick. This is just awful. This is, okay, 20th of December, the DVSA. I don't know what DVSA is, or RPA. Never mind, it's a public service for sure. Here, more nurses are striking on the 20th. Ambulance workers and other NHS staff will stage a strike coordinated by the GMB, Unison and Unite. You see, all these unions gathering together. They just want to hurt people. That has to be it. They want to hurt. And there are many people who are suffering under the economic problems we have nowadays and not members of unions. And as I said, small businesses, shops that have been hanging on through all the lockdowns, all this sort of thing. A friend of mine has gone out of business recently because, yeah, he wasn't getting the footfall in his shop. He's suffering. He can't go on strike. He's just got to pick himself up and start something else quick before he starves. And they're striking at a time like this as well. Ambulance workers and other NHS staff on the 21st of December and the DVSA, Yorkshire, Humber, North Wales, RPA staff continue their action. 23rd, cleaners with the RMT. You can't send a train out that isn't clean. So what's going to happen is if the RMT aren't striking, the cleaners are. So again, the trains can't go out. Members of Unite who work at the Highlands and Islands Airport are striking again. That's the 22nd. 23rd, Eurostar security staff, cleaners and postal workers and DVSA. I just can't carry on. I just can't carry on. This is obviously war. This is obviously a lot of useful idiots or even paid idiots punishing the British people for supporting Ukraine. Well, I don't know why the government isn't actually saying that out loud. It's got to be. Just look at all of this. Coordinated attacks. There's a strike of the drivers in the rail unions. Strike of the drivers. Okay, right, but we're only striking one day. Yeah, but the next day the cleaners. Well, we're only striking one. Yeah, but the next day the security staff. This has to be coordinated. Call me tinfoiling if you want, but I'm just speechless. I actually didn't read this before I started. I knew there was a series of strikes. I wasn't sure exactly how many of them are. I'm just looking at the pattern here. The trouble with conspiracy theories is it's somebody who sees a pattern in things that aren't patterns, but it's a human characteristic, isn't it, to see patterns. That's why we see lions in clouds and Jesus in an orange or whatever. So I could be seeing patterns here that don't exist. And if you think I am, yes, say so in the comments. But no, this seems to me to be something far more than just coincidence. All right, well, that's it. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the granniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.granniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.